What's good is Boy Did Reviews, and today we have got the fifth MCU flick, Captain America, the First Avenger, a 2011 American superhero film based on the Marvel comic character Captain America. Produced by Marvel Studios and distributed by Paramount Pictures, the film was directed by Joe Johnston, written by Christopher Marcus and Stephen McFeely, and stars Chris Evans as Steve Rogers, alongside Tommy Lee Jones, Hugo Weaving, Haley Atwell, Sebastian Stan, Dominic Cooper, Neil McDonough, Derek Luke, and Stanley Tuick. Set predominantly during World War II, the film tells the story of Steve Rogers, a sickly man from Brooklyn who was transformed into the super soldier Captain America and must stop the Red Skull, who intends to use an artifact called the Tesseract as an energy source for world domination. The film began as a concept in 1997 and was scheduled for distribution by Artstastan Entertainment. However, a lawsuit not settled until September 2003 disrupted the project, and in 2005 Marvel Studios received a loan from Merrill Lynch and planned to finance and release it through Paramount Pictures. And directors Jon Favreau and Louis Leterrier were interested in directing the project before Joe Johnston was approached in 2008. And the film premiered at the Captain Theatre, the L Captain Theatre, I think it's called, on July 19th, 2011, and was released in the US on July 22nd, 2011. The film was commercially successful, grossing over $370 million worldwide, and critics praised Chris Evans' performance, the film's depiction of the 1940s time period, and Joe Johnston's direction. And what can I talk about this film? Let's talk about the positives of this film. And the grid of this film is definitely the visual look of this film. I mean, this film, having it set in the 40s, I really do like how they kind of captured that look of the 40s, and just some of the scenery just looks amazing. I like seeing the old technology, especially with Steve being in that little container. I don't know, I just like seeing all that old stuff. It looked really appealing and cool to look at. And yeah, some of the scenes, like when they're like fighting and Steve's like chasing down the Hydra agent, just looks amazing, and I flipping enjoyed it. This film, I have to admit, doesn't get enough credit. Even though it did get positive reviews, there are a lot of people who just kind of underlook this film. They don't really, they don't really look up to this film. And for me, this is definitely one of my favorite MCU films. Every Captain America film is amazing, and these are my favorite movies of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Whenever I rewatch these films, I always look forward to the First Avenger or Winter Soldier or Civil War. I just love the whole Captain America storyline because they make it, I think, because it's very grounded. And this is the good thing about this film, it's very grounded. It feels real. It feels like this could actually happen, and I feel like this actually has happened in a way. It's not campy, it's not corny. I mean, you've got this 6-foot bloke with a six-pack running around with a American shield and a mask, and it's meant to be campy, but it's just done so realistically that you don't see the camp, and I just love it. Chris Evans as Steve Rogers, perfect casting. Perfect casting. I mean, I love the technology they did with young Steve and just buff Steve. I mean, I love that, and I just liked how he was able to portray this character. I really do like Steve Rogers' story. It's just so great, and he seems like the underdog, and I really relate to him. I really do. Like all the early scenes with Steve Rogers as that sickly young man, I kind of relate to that, and I was just rooting for Steve throughout. And I love all the other characters, like Tommy Lee Jones as Chester Phillips, Haley Atwell's Peggy Carter, one of my favorite female characters in the MCU. She's just this badass secret agent who's got a lot of heart, and I'm so happy they made a whole TV series about her because it just needed to happen. Even though I haven't finished season 2 yet, I still like the character, and it's just so great. Sebastian Stan as Bucky Barnes, what a great casting choice. I really do like this, like, he's kind of like the big brother for Steve Rogers. He's always there for him. He was there from the beginning, always kind of watching him. And obviously the MCU really do give Bucky Barnes an interesting, development throughout the MCU, but I won't spoil it for you in case you haven't seen it. And Dominic Cooper as Howard Stark, I have to admit, was actually really, really great. Like, he's meant to play like Howard Stark when he's like in his late 20s, early 30s. He's a very young Howard Stark. And I do like this version of Howard Stark. Obviously, the Howard Stark in the Iron Man 2, the Civil War, and all those other ones, like the older Howard Stark, and he's played by John Slattery, and they both give a very different performance. This one, he gives a kind of like a cocky, arrogant type of personality, and John Slattery gives a very kind of stern, very stern, very, madman type of persona to the character. But I really did like Dominic Cooper. He actually does look like Tony Stark as well, and I really, really, really did like it. And I'm happy they still continued using this, having this version of Howard Stark in the TV series of Agent Carter. I thought that was really done really well. And let's talk about the mixed aspect. This film also has a really great soundtrack as well. It was definitely the first film to actually have a very memorable score. The Iron Man films and the Hulk film didn't really have a memorable score, and Thor did have a good score, but this one is like, this when you hear that score, you're like, yeah, I'm in the Captain America film. And the score just paces really well with, like, what the character's going through, and just it's paced really well. I love all the scenes with Steve Rogers, Peggy Carter, and all that. I think that's like the highlight of the film. I really do enjoy all that. But let's get into our mixed aspects. And as much as I like this film so much, there is a lot of mixed stuff in this film. And the villain, Red Skull. The two villains, you've got Hugo Weaving playing the Red Skull, and you've got who's the other guy who plays his kind of like sidekick, Dr. Armanzola. That's it, Dr. Armanzola. I don't know who plays him, but I think they did a pretty damn good job, to be honest with you. They did an alright job, and honestly, I did like their performance, but I did find Hugo Weaving's performance a little camp in a way. He was very, I've got to get the Tesseract to this place, and it's like rule the world, and it's a little camp, but I think it kind of works for the story. But the one thing I didn't like was his face, the Red Skull. It was like someone just was like, the art department was like, let's just give him red face paint. They could have made him look a little bit more creepy looking, because from my memory, and the Red Skull has a very creepy design in the comics. He's this kind of demon monkey / deformed, like skeleton snake-like face, and it's very creepy. But the way it looks on Hugo Weaving's face, it's just a guy with red paint, and it doesn't look that creepy. And for me personally, I couldn't take it seriously at all. It was just so distracting, and I was just like, oh mate, I can't take this seriously. I really can't. I can't. I mean, come on. And this is kind of a negative aspect of the film, and I don't think many people would even pick up on it, but I did. This film, for some strange reason, seems to switch frame rates, and I don't know, whenever the characters, it kind of happens sometime after Steve Rogers gets all buff and all that, or maybe it's before that, before he gets all buff, and it happens throughout the whole film, and I've picked up on it. Whenever the characters are interacting inside, whenever it's an interior scene, the frame rate is always really high. It's like at 48 frames per second, and it looks like a soap opera. But then when they're outside, like when it's outside space, is at this normal cinematic 24 frames per second. And I don't like that. I really don't like it, because whenever they walk inside, it feels like it's a behind the scenes featurette, and it looks really bad. It looks jarring, and the lighting, it doesn't work. It doesn't work at all. I don't like the lighting at all when they're inside, and it's very jarring. This is mainly when I noticed this scene, particularly when Steve was talking with the doctor, in the first half of the film, when the doctor guy and basically confronts Steve, and it's really bad. It's really bad lighting. It's so bad, and it feels like you're watching behind the scenes soap opera featurette. It's really bad. And it's also notable when Steve is rescuing Bucky Barnes later on in the film. It's really bad. I'm sorry. I couldn't stand it. And when they're fighting inside, it's like the high frame rate. It's like live action soap opera. It doesn't work. It doesn't work at all. Why didn't they stick with the normal frame rate? I don't know why Joe Johnston liked to flip back and forth frame rates. It just made the whole film jarring and unappealing. And that was the only gripe of the film I had as well. Personally, I had. And obviously the villain was a little camp, and the whole motivation about what the villain wanted, it wasn't like, I could do without. But apart from that, everything else was absolutely golden. Captain America is this gritty film, down to earth. We have many great characters, great visuals. The visual effects still hold up after 9 years later, and it's just a great action film. And for that, I'm definitely going to give Captain America the First Avenger an A, and I'm going to give it an A out of 10. I'm sorry, I know a lot of people don't like this film, but I love it. I love it so much. And it's a shame that other people don't like it as much as I do. But thank you for watching this review. Please like and share this video. Comment down below and tell me, what is your favourite MCU film? What's your favourite Captain America flick? My one is just yet to come. But for that, thank you for watching, and like and subscribe, and as always, avoiding the reviews, signing out.